Howdy Internet, it's Matt here with Gulf Coast Fit, and today I am going to practice what I preach, which, believe it or not, can be fairly challenging as a trainer a lot of the time. It's my daily duty to make sure that I'm assisting everyone that I train with in and administering what they need to do and making sure that their best interests are top priority. And a lot of the time, the things that I ought to do rather than what I want to do kind of go by the wayside. So let me fill you in a little bit about what I mean by that. And what I preach a lot is developing a very strong mind-muscle connection, or a mind-body connection, if you will. When it comes to resistance training, whether you're doing body weight exercises, band-resisted exercises, any resistance modality, all the way up to barbells, developing a mind-body connection or a mind-muscle connection is very important, both for development and execution progression of said exercise, and also for safety and remaining as injury-free as possible. Me particularly, I am not naturally inclined to psychologically excel at workouts that really focus primarily on mind-muscle connection. And what I mean when I say mind-muscle connection is whatever exercise you're doing, whether it's a shoulder raise, a row, a squat, leg extensions, leg curls, you can be targeting any muscle. Whether you're doing a big compound exercise or a small isolation exercise, knowing what your target muscle is, putting your brain into that muscle, focusing on controlling, contracting, lengthening in the eccentric phase and contracting in the concentric phase, squeezing at both ends of the spectrum in an isometric fashion. That's really what helps you develop a mind-muscle connection. And the better you can develop that mind-muscle connection, the safer you are at performing that exercise because of the enhanced control, but you also develop the muscles more effectively. It's not that I don't focus as hard as I can on every single exercise that I'm doing. I'm just a little bit more neurally driven. And that goes into the psychology of fitness, the psychology of training and athletics. There are folks who are a little bit more mind-muscle driven and folks who are a little bit more neurologically driven. What I mean by neurologically driven is that I perform well, both mentally and physically, when I'm executing big, compound, multi-joint, synergistic movements that are perhaps a little bit more complex in nature, but they allow you to move heavier loads, ignite your nervous system, engage more muscles, and really ramp yourself up neurally so that the fight or flight or freeze response comes into play as much as possible. Now, the mind-muscle connection is a little bit more of a bodybuilder-esque type of training. When you're really putting your brain into a muscle, let's say I'm doing tricep extensions, and the sole thing that I'm focusing on is squeezing whatever head of the tricep I'm focusing on or what I'm targeting, then that's when you're really amplifying and developing your mind-muscle connection. Again, that's a little bit of that is a lot of bit of a bodybuilder-esque type of training, and it's a very valuable mindset to work on and develop. When you're a little bit more neurologically driven, then you need to feel your nervous system straining and kind of taxing, and working on neurological or CNS efficiency is kind of the target there, which usually entails bigger loads, more explosive movements, large synergistic multi-joint, multi-muscle group exercises. And those do set you back a little bit more when you're taxing your nervous system. But if you know me or if you've been in my camp for a while, then you know that I'm certainly a fan of neurological training for myself. And when it comes to training clients or individuals or even groups of people, I certainly make sure that we've got a good Venn diagram going on, and we train both the mind-muscle, mind-body side of resistance training and also the neurological or CNS efficiency side of training. So training is all about strengthening your weaknesses, and today I'm going to strengthen my weakness. I'm glad you're here with me because I'm going to use this time to address my weaknesses, which are training my extremities, my arms. I don't hit my arms much. You hardly ever see me doing bicep curls or tricep extensions or shoulder raises. I'm not super into the bro workout, so to speak. I don't mean to be stereotypical. That's just kind of what people think of when you think of doing isolation type exercises, whether it's for your abdominals or different core layers of core musculature, whether it's for your upper extremities or whether you're targeting your quadriceps specifically, hamstring specifically. Those type of isolation workouts that do help you tremendously develop a good quality mind-muscle connection. They are seen as bro workouts, and that's a pretty crappy label because everyone should do isolation work. Since I don't do isolation work, it holds me back with all of the bigger bang for your buck stuff that I do excel in, like pull-ups, rows, heavy squats, deadlifts, cleans, push presses, ball throws, or sprints. Those all demand a very high level and a very developed level of CNS efficiency. And my weaknesses hold me back. And when I'm pressing in any direction, my triceps hold me back. When I'm pulling in any direction, rowing, paddling, my biceps and my shoulders hold me back. And so that's what I'm really going to focus on today. I'm going to run through a continuous isolation circuit, or a hypertrophy circuit, if you will. This is designed to build a lot of tension, a lot of lactic acid buildup, and a lot of localized fatigue. So this is also good for localized stamina in the target muscle groups, which today I'll be focusing on biceps and shoulders. That's, again, me trying to be a little bit more towards the CNS side of things. I'm already picking two muscle groups when really I should just focus on one. But to keep myself mentally in this, along with you accompanying me, I'm going to do some shoulder exercises and biceps. And this will be a continuous superset circuit, which means I'm always going back and forth between a deltoid exercise and a bicep exercise. I don't know how many exercises this will be. I don't know how many reps I'm going to do. The parameters that I'm working with, because I like to keep things within parameters that help dictate what direction I'm going. And I know what my intention is: hypertrophy and mind muscle development in the bis and the shoulders, all three heads, anterior, medial, posterior. My parameters will be that I'm working with dumbbells, 2 dumbbells that are they're just shy of 15 pounds each. And I'm also going to be doing a superset continuous circuit, which means I'm never stopping. Little mini rest breaks. I'm a big fan of using your breaths for recovery. I will give myself an allowance of up to 5 breaths between every single exercise. That way I can put the weights down and shake it out, breathe it out, recommit mentally, and think about what's coming next. Because honestly, this is going to be performance-based for me, and every exercise and how the performance goes in any given exercise will dictate what my next exercise is. So whatever precedes the next thing kind of gives me food for thought as I go along. And I would invite you to try something like this as well, whether it's for your arms like I'm doing, your upper extremities, or something else. So at the end of the day, you have to tweak things as you go, be as present as possible, listen to your body, listen and find out what your performance, how you're affected and how you're reacting to what you're doing, and that'll dictate what comes next. Here we go. Starting off with some lateral raises. Keeping it simple. Most of these exercises will be very simple, and I do appreciate that. What I hate is that I'm going to build up a lot of burn, a lot of tension, and a lot of hate in my heart for these exercises as I do them. I only want to do 1 set of every exercise, so I'm going to make the most out of every set. I'm squeezing as hard as I can at the peak of every rep, and also controlling the eccentric, controlling the negative, because the negative is where you build the most muscle, the most tension, and the most discipline. I don't know where that is, but I would like every rep range, every exercise to fall between 8 and 20 reps. If it's less than 8, it's too heavy, stressing my joints too much. Got to be smart about that. If it's over 20, we're not working hypertrophy anymore. You're drifting too far into muscular endurance. for an isolation exercise. That's probably my 5 breaths. Let's start simple here. I've got supinated, palms up bicep curls. And my shoulders are externally rotated. And by having this external rotation in my shoulders, you see my elbows are tucked in. My palms are facing out. Putting my brain in my biceps as hard as I can. Although these are 15 pounds, I'm squeezing and contracting like they're 45, 50 pounds. Ooh. When it comes to a mind-muscle adaptation, you want to hit fatigue sooner than later. You want to find your threshold as quickly as possible by making the most out of every rep. And that's also, that comes along to efficiency. The sooner you hit that pain threshold, that tolerance threshold, that lactic acid threshold, and try to push through it a little bit, the more productive you're being. I could hoist these up 30, 40, 50 times if I really had to in a haphazardous manner, but would not be developing the mind-body connection, would not be maintaining tension that I need to get what I need out of this. And remember, our intention is hypertrophy for a lot of reasons. All right, I'm gonna go with a supinated front raise. Now this is a single joint exercise. I'm operating solely through the glenohumeral joint, my shoulder joint. However, with this supination technique, I'm incorporating my biceps at the top, which makes it a compound muscle group movement. I'm controlling as much as I can. It might not look like I'm lowering very slowly, but that's me controlling it as much as possible. I'm thinking and adapting on the fly. So I thought of that supinated technique right as I was going to do the front raise, because my objective is delts and bis, and this incorporates both of them in. So kind of killing 2 for 1 there. We're gonna move on to biceps again. Going with a hammer curl. Now hammer curls are a much stronger bicep curl variation. So I'm going to shut up because I need to make these as hard as possible. Otherwise, I'll end up doing too many reps. Oh. I did a pretty good job there because that settled in pretty quickly. I was squeezing as hard as I can. Always back to your breath between sets. I know I'm talking to you, but I'm trying to limit the duration of recovery to what would be about 5 breaths. With under fatigue, I'm pretty good at making 5 breaths last about 30 seconds. So I'll give myself 20, 30 seconds between everything. I'm going to focus on the posterior delts now. Pronated grip, pinkies out, thumbs in. I'll do these standing to show you my grip. A rear delt raise does not have a great range of motion. With this hand position anatomically, you're not able to pull your shoulders back as far. You don't want to get jerky on a rear delt raise. It can be pretty injurious potentially to your back of your shoulder capsule. Oh. And I'm not keeping track of reps. I just know it's falling within 8 to about 20. I don't usually eat fruit while I work out, but forgot to bring extra hydration today, so fruit is my hydration. No excuses. All right, I'm going to stay seated now. I'm going into a Sox Curl. Sox Curls I really like because we pronate and supinate. See, I pronate at the top going down, supinate at the bottom on the way up. What a Sox Curl does is incorporate your brachialis, your pronators and supinators, in your forearms between your wrist and your elbows. Really great for injury prevention in the wrists and elbows. Also great rehab for tennis elbow, elbow tendonitis. I like that they work the wrist extensors, since every time we grip and pull, we work our wrist flexors. Can help even out that imbalance to some degree. When I hit a wall fast on an isolation exercise. That's one reason why psychologically I'm probably not a big fan, or I stay away to my detriment from doing a lot of isolation work. But again, you're only as strong as your weaknesses. And I know that if I want to get better at pulling, at pushing, at sprinting, at everything I do, at paddling on the water, things that are very endurance based especially, then I need to build muscle, protect my joints. And there is something to be said as well for having an enhanced efficiency of CNS. Your nervous system efficiency benefits greatly from building more muscle surrounding joints that you use a lot. All right, I'm gonna go with a transition raise. Now I want to do something that's really going to take a toll on all three heads of my delts. So I'm doing these transition raises from lateral to front and vice versa. Making sure I'm going no higher than shoulder level. If you come up above shoulder level, I'll do a bad one like this. Then you're incorporating your trapezius, upper back, scapular elevators. And we know our intention is not to hit the back. So we're not going to do anything that takes away from this shitty ass workout that I hate so much. Oh! I'm also doing this seated because when you take out your lower extremities, then the kinetic chain is shortened. Less joints that are involved in the movement. If I'm standing on my feet, there are more muscles and more joints up the chain to the dumbbells. More opportunities for power leakages. More opportunities for me to use body English that's unwanted. That would take away from isolating exactly what we're going for. So the more strict, the better. Having said that, I'm going to start. I'm fatiguing pretty good in my delts and my bis. So I am going to start most likely cheating a little bit, and I'll talk about that when I cross that bridge. All right. Bicep curls, boom. I'm gonna go with a reverse curl. You might notice that I just installed some fat grips on these weights. Now I did that on the fly. Luckily I had some fat grips with me today. Since I am targeting my wrist extensors as far as my forearms go, fat grips will really help amplify just those muscles. Holding on to different grip widths is very beneficial in your upper extremity development. If we're always gripping the same circumference object like a barbell or a dumbbell or a kettlebell or whatever, the said principle, specific adaptations to impose demands, there's no getting around that, aka you get good at what you do. So if I'm always lifting weights with this circumference, then I'm going to suffer lifting weights at this circumference, or vice versa. It's not that the fat grips are harder. If I always lifted with fat grips, gripping something smaller would actually be harder because it's not something that I typically do. That's the said principle, specific adaptations to impose demands, and there's no getting around that applies to every aspect of our training. Going back to shoulder raises now, I am going to do some reverse flies, which are different than the rear delt raises, because instead of targeting just the posterior delts, I'm targeting the medial delts and the posterior delt. I'm trying to do this in a manner where I retract my shoulder blades as little as possible, because I am not trying to recruit my traps and rhomboids. I will to some degree, but I'm trying not to. Now I'm implementing a little bit of a cheat. Oh, now you don't want to cheat all the time. That's where you use a little bit of body English for a good reason at the right time. Being a little more neurally driven, that keeps me in the game mentally, keeps me a little bit more productive. If I do start to use a little body English, then that satisfies psychologically and physiologically the fact that I am a very neurally charged individual, because when I do start to use my full body, then I feel the exercise working. Goes back again to me having a less developed mind-muscle connection. Even though I do work on that all the time, I just recognize my weaknesses. Going back to curls, I'm going to bend over and do a concentration curl, or you might call this a bent over preacher curl. I'm getting pretty taxed at this point, and although I will cheat for a good reason, you don't want to cheat too much all the time. Just know why you're doing it when you're doing it. But when you get to the point where you're using cheat reps or body English more than you're doing strict exercises, something needs to change. Either that's the end of the road, and you're done, or you need to adjust your parameters like the weight. But I'm sticking with 15 pounds, and that's what's going to dictate my performance and the workout in general. I'm going to finish with a couple of compound exercises, because these Arnold presses work the biceps and all three heads of the shoulder, including your internal and external rotators. The key is to squeeze your biceps at the bottom, squeeze the bis, big shrug at the top, squeeze the bis, full extension. Now, I'm going to stick to what I said about only doing one set of everything, but I want to get more out of this, so I'm going to turn this into an alternating Arnold press. Couple more. I'm starting to move faster and faster, but I'm still attempting to put every ounce of thought into the target muscles, the joint actions, which muscles are coming into action, to what extent, at what time, and how they work in conjunction with everything else. The more synergistic an exercise is, it's a little bit less effective or less appropriate to do as an isolation mind-muscle connection type of workout. But I'm saving these two exceptions for the end, because these are kind of my cash out exercises, the Arnold presses. And honestly, I needed that synergy just to get through this. I don't think I could do any more biceps or shoulder specific exercises, so I'm having to couple the two together. And I'm finishing with these upright rows. I like upright rows because they incorporate external shoulder rotation at the top. Make sure you keep the dumbbell handles below your elbows. Make sure you keep the weights close to your body. And I'm really glad, one sec. Ah. I'm really glad that I put these in an isolation exercise superset or circuit, because I don't want to go heavy with upright rows in general. I'm not a big fan of heavy upright rows. A lot of stress on the shoulders, a lot of room for deficiencies and improper lifting technique. That felt good. Having pre-fatigued the biceps and shoulders quite a bit allows me to only need 15-pound dumbbells to get a good effect with upright rows. Now, if I'm being honest with myself, I got a little bit left, so I'm going to superset the Arnold presses with the upright rows, and I'm going to do so in an alternating fashion, and I'm going to make the last set the best set. Last set, best set. Always have that mindset. No matter how fatigued you are, form and focus above fatigue. Always. Last time. Oh, I'm going alternating with this too. Ah. Oh, so there you have it. Oh. Oh. A little orange gains hydration. There's me doing what I need to do, not what I want to do. I hate doing arms. I hate doing shoulder isolations. I understand that it holds me back in other things that I do. No matter who you are, you need to deconstruct, find your weaknesses, build your weaknesses up. I'm kind of the opposite of a lot of folks, or especially guys. Again, I don't do a lot of bro workouts, a lot of hypertrophy workouts, but it's very beneficial. And in the big picture, we all need to be bodybuilders at some point in time, meaning you need to focus on hypertrophy where you need it, when you need it. And at the end of the day, when you develop muscles through hypertrophy, you can lift safer, your joints are safer, and you help enhance your neurological efficiency too. Because when you are doing the big compound exercises like push presses and cleans and ball throws and very large athletic movements, those are very taxing on your nervous system. And when you've developed your muscle fibers all the way down from motor units to motor pools that comprise your muscle groups, when you develop them and grow them in size and strength, then it's like you have more clay to work with. When you've got more clay to work with, you can build the type of athlete you want, both physically, mentally, neurologically. It all ties in. So we've got to be bodybuilders sometimes, even if it sucks. We'll catch you next time. Thank you for helping me. And feel free, if you got some light dumbbells, 5s, 8s, 10s, 12s, I use 15s, but you certainly don't need 15 pounds. I would say for most people, 20 pounds would be too heavy for a circuit of this nature, but try to build your own superset continuous circuit, whether you're doing it for hammies and quads, could be calves and abs, delts, bis, tris, give it a go. Or you can run through what I just did. I'm happy if it helps you. Catch you later, folks.